I think we're all sick of the Democrats doing this shit. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of, well, what do I know? I'm pretty sure that's going to be the title now. We're going to go with that. I like it. I think it's going to stick. So, hopping right into it, we have elections going on today. So we're going to start in Maine, because obviously Maine gets first dibs here. So we don't have any mayoral or governor or whatever election going on right now. We have the two questions being asked. We have question 1 and question 2. The first one is in regards to absentee voting and voter ID. And really a big thing for people is the voter ID part of that. So a lot of people are voting yes, because obviously we want to make it difficult to vote, or at least more difficult than it currently is. Right now, it is way too easy to get absentee ballots. It is way too easy to just waltz in and vote. You should have to present ID of some kind. There should be barriers of entry. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we want to make sure that we are making it a little bit more difficult to go through. So that way, only people who have the mental capability and who have the proper identification can go in and cast their vote. And so the main sticking point there is the absentee voting part, because the people who are voting no are scared that it's going to somehow implode absentee voting, which it's not. Again, it's just going to make it so there's a little bit more barrier. It's a little bit more, in my opinion, organized. But again, that's the fear there. And then number 2 is the red flag law. And the red flag law is just about whether or not you should be able to call the police and go, oh, my neighbor said that he wants to harm himself and others, and then they can go take his guns. So pretty much everyone, though, it's funny because, again, I never really see much agreement on both sides with things, but I actually have not seen a single sign that says vote yes on question 2, because Janet Mills actually also opposes it. So if you're asking for my guess as to what's going to happen, my guess is that question 2 will not pass. Again, I haven't seen a single sign on the road. I haven't seen anyone talking about how we should be voting yes on question 2, so I wouldn't expect that one to pass. Question 1 is a little bit more sticky. And this is where I have some frustrations with Republicans and conservatives sometimes. And that is, we in the past have struggled to act. We have a lot of feelings about things, but then when it comes down to actually voting, actually putting these policies in, like speaking our mind in a way that actually makes actionable change, like voting on these questions, we don't do that as much. And then we see these leftist policies go into effect and destroy our state a little bit more. And then we're like, this sucks. I hate this. Okay, where were you? Where were you on Tuesday? You weren't voting. You were sitting at home, or you were going, I'm really tired today. I don't want to. So, and I have seen some change in that. I feel like I've noticed somewhat of a shift happening, especially around last election, and where I see a lot more conservatives standing up around our state. And that's a good thing. So the optimist in me is like, I've seen more movement. That's a good thing. Maybe that means that a lot more people will be out to vote. They'll be speaking their mind, and we can actually get policies that we want to see in our state. And then the nihilist in me, the true Mainer in my soul, is going to go, it's not going to get voted in. It's not going to get voted in. So we'll see which one wins, the Chad optimist or the beta nihilist. But, ultimately, it's in God's hands. It's where I kind of have to leave every election so I just don't fall into a pit of despair. It's in God's hands. And at least with this one, I don't know. I had so much anxiety with the last election and really had to give it to God. So at least with this one, it's not like as big as a presidency happening. But yeah, so I hope you went out and voted, because this is obviously going to be coming out after. I hope you voted. And if not, and it didn't go through, I may or may not be blaming it on you. So, anywho, there's a second thing I want to talk about. And I honestly find it kind of funny. Like, it's hard for me to really take it super seriously. And that is the Graham Plattner tattoo thing. So if you don't know, Graham Plattner is running for senator here in Maine as a Democrat. And he had a controversy like a big controversy thing happen because a picture of him surfaced with a tattoo on his chest. And oopsie, it's a Nazi symbol. Ooh. Like an actual legitimate like Nazi Germany symbol. And so a lot of people were clutching their pearls, obviously, because what? Also, I mean, a Democrat, so it was just a whole thing. And then it gets better, at least for me. Again, I find this whole thing low-key kind of funny. But, because also, I mean, he's Democrat, so there wasn't a strong chance I was probably going to vote for him anyway. So he said the backstory apparently was he was stationed in Croatia in the military and was drunk and got the tattoo when he was stationed out there. And Croatia had ties to Nazism during the time of Nazi Germany and whatnot, so it's not super surprising that they would still have some lingering things over there. But yeah, so apparently he was drunk in another country when he got the tattoo and probably just thought he just thought it looked cool. So he got it, which again, to me is just, I mean, would I want someone like that to be in control of our country? No, but I have to kind of laugh at this whole situation. I was talking to my mom about it, and because I like to hear my parents' thoughts on things sometimes, because they, even though we are all generally, we're all conservative and stuff, they can offer different perspective. And she was saying apparently there's also been upsets in his campaign where he's had a few different staffers of his leave. And she was saying to me, she was like, honestly, I wouldn't want to vote for him just on the basis of it seems like his campaign is very chaotic and not cohesive at all. And there's just a lot of behind the scene things that seem to be going on there as well. So, I don't know if he's the strongest candidate anymore, but again, I just can't help but laugh that like, he wasn't even like, oh yeah, I had a really dark past in the alt-right or something. It's just, nah, I got super blasted out in Croatia, man. And I just thought it was a cool looking tattoo. So, a little lighthearted way to end the main segment here. I thought we could all have a good laugh about that. So now moving on to America at large. And I'll keep in the vein of elections because also this is probably the part I'm the most worried about. And that is the New York election happening today. Also today, they have 3 candidates that have been out. If you've been online, then the New York election is probably one of the most popular ones you've been seeing because of the Democratic candidate, Zoran Mamdani. He is the Democratic candidate. Andrew Cuomo, beloved Andrew Cuomo, is going as an independent. And then you have Curtis Sliwa, who is the Republican. And he is not slated to win. He is doing the worst in the polling. Shocker. Who could have guessed with New York? So really, it's up against Cuomo and Zoran. And do I think that Cuomo has really any realistic chance of winning? Sadly, I do not. Now, again, I'm not saying that because I like Cuomo. I don't really think anyone likes Cuomo. So, but Zoran Mamdani, if you don't know, he is what seems to be a democratic socialist, which really means that they're, in my opinion, that they're just a socialist, but they put democratic in front of the word to make it sound really cool and hip and not just like crappy socialism that has destroyed tons of countries and killed millions of people. So he is, and he's talked about a lot of different things he wants to do. And he's very popular because he's young and he has a good social media presence and whatnot. So there are a lot of, especially like young, like he's very popular with the younger base, with people my age, sadly, who are stupid. Sorry, that's kind of mean. Ill-informed, ignorant might be a better word. And a part of me does get it, but let me not get ahead of myself. So he's talked about different things like rent freezing on apartments. He's talked about government-run stores. He's talked about free transportation. And don't get me wrong, all of that sounds great, right? When you don't really think about it too hard. Of course, no one likes when rent goes up again during one of the most expensive times of year And while the economy right now is also pretty garbage, obviously I feel for those people, especially somewhere as expensive as New York, where rent is just out of control. And of course, my heart goes out to people who are not able to pay for transportation. And it sucks for them. Absolutely. Like, that's not a good situation to be in, where you aren't, you know what I mean? Where it's even a struggle to pay for, I don't know, the subway or whatever. And obviously, none of us are really happy with the grocery store prices right now. So on the face of it, everything he's saying sounds good. So to a young person who has heard of this grandiose vision of socialism, right? Of, oh, these are all the good things socialism can do. It sounds really, really nice. And the problem is it falls into the same thing. Like, every single time when people talk about socialism, it's always, oh, well, it just hasn't been done right before. Ignore the fact that literally every single time someone has tried socialism, it hasn't worked out and it's gone horrifically wrong and killed millions of people and been an absolute disaster and led to dictators. Don't worry about that. They just haven't done it right yet. We'll do it right this time, I promise. First off, that's such a fallacy. It's so dumb, ridiculous, and people fall into it every time. Because again, socialism sounds nice. But when you think about it, my question is, how is this being paid for? My history teacher from high school, may he rest in peace, one of the biggest things I remember him saying to us, nothing in life is ever truly free. Your friend gives you a pencil and they go, oh, here you go. Just going to give you a pencil, right? You don't have to pay for it. Someone still paid for it because it costs money to cut down the tree, mine the graphite, mine the metal, harvest the rubber, get it all processed, pay for it to be transported to whatever factory that put them all together, and they had to pay the people at the factory to do that, and then they had to pay for more people to transport it to the store of Walmart, where Walmart had to pay for that merchandise, and they then put it on the shelves, where someone had to buy the pencils to then give to you. Along the way, someone's paying for it, right? So my question is, how does this get paid for? Because the government's certainly not making it. You know, it's not like the governor's taking it out of his pocket. So where's the money coming from? Taxes. It's coming from taxes. And he goes, oh, we're going to tax all the rich and wealthy here in New York. You know, we're going to tax them because they deserve it. Because having money is evil and bad. And these people shouldn't have all this money. So we're going to tax them more than they're already being taxed. And so that way, that will help us pay for everything. And again, you're a young college student or whatever, and you go, that sounds great. Because they say they're not going to tax me. And then I get free stuff. Sounds really cool. Again. But imagine you're the millionaire. Right? You're the millionaire. And then suddenly you go, oh, my taxes are about to go up by a crazy amount of money. I'm about to have to be paying a ton more in taxes. I see a lot less of my return. And it doesn't seem to be stopping at all. Like, it's not like the taxes are going to get better here. And New York is already expensive. And it's only gotten more expensive. And, you know, so with that, you think they're not going to just move as taxes get higher for them? And also, it's not like they see a return on it. They don't need the free transportation. They aren't the ones who are needing rent control. They aren't the ones who are needing the government stores, right? So all the super rich people that you wanted to tax, they go, oh, well, we're sick of it. We're sick. Like, you've raised taxes on us a ton. It seems like you're only going to keep raising taxes. We're out of here. We're going to move somewhere like Texas or Florida where there's low taxes, or it's at least more affordable for us. And so they leave. And so now, oh no, your cash cows are leaving. So where are you going to get the money from? You think they're like, do we not see that not going well for people? Like, that's not eventually going to touch the middle class. It's going to touch those who aren't the uber rich, because the uber rich are going to leave and they're going to take all their money with them. All of it, including the businesses there who rely. Like, let's be real. New York has beautiful, big, expensive stores selling luxury products. And suddenly all of the people buying those luxury products are gone. So they are going to go. And you'll see this exodus of business. And also, again, like, when I just think of that on its own, and there are a million other reasons too why it's just economically a disaster to do any of that. But Zoran's not going to tell you that because he's going to polish it and make it look really nice. And also, charity should, and another thing I want to say here, especially as a Christian, because whenever a Christian talks negatively about socialism, the whole thing is, oh, well, I mean, aren't you guys all about charity? Aren't you all about giving? Yeah, we are. We're not about the government deciding that you're going to be charitable, that they get to choose that you're going to be charitable, and then they get to choose how much money you get to donate. Lucky you. Not that you get to write it off on your taxes, but we're just going to decide to take your money, and then the government gets to decide what they do with that. You tell me how that makes sense. If I want to give to charity, I'm going to give to charity. I'm going to donate to my local pregnancy resource center. I'm going to tithe at my church. I'm going to go help out at my food bank or give money, or, being charitable is about you choosing as a person to be charitable, and then choosing how much of your money you're giving and who you're giving it to. Why would you ever trust the secular government, who frankly, their priority is money? Why would you ever trust them with your money? Because again, when you do that, you're choosing how much they get to take and who they get to give it to. So how many of us have seen our taxes being paid towards places like Planned Parenthood in the past? Things that we don't agree with, things that we actually don't even think should be legal here. So that just has never made sense to me. So, we should be praying for New York, praying for other places too. I know New Jersey's also having an election as well. That could possibly flip the state red. And again, that's why just make sure we are having real discernment, because when something sounds really good and someone tells you, oh, it's going to be free, and it's going to be so beautiful and wonderful, that's never really the case. Nothing in life is ever truly free. And when the government says something is free, probably the thing you should be doubting the most. So, anywho, pray for New York, because they are about to learn a hard lesson, because I'd be shocked if Mamdani doesn't win. Because again, he seems to be definitely the winner here, right? No one really likes Cuomo. Sliwa also was doing the worst out of the three in the polls. So we'll see what happens, but I fear they may be learning a hard lesson there. On that note, if you're liking what you're seeing so far, please make sure to like the video, leave a comment, subscribe, all that good stuff down below. Moving on to other things. Our government is still shut down. I honestly did not think I would be here recording again, and the government is still shut down. And of course, like I've said before, every side wants to blame the other. And I really find it amazing how good Democrats are at lying, because when you look at the Democrats, they're saying the Republicans are keeping it shut down. They run the House. They're the ones who are, who have the majority, which is true. Technically, we do have the majority. But here's the deal. They have voted at least, it may have changed since I last saw, at least 13 times to reopen. 13 times. And every single time, the Democrats have voted to keep it closed. Because mind you, I looked it up and saw, and it says there are 53 Republicans, and there are 2 independents, and there are 43 Democrats. In order to pass a vote, they need 60 votes. So even though every single Republican can vote for it to be open, they need Democrats to vote yes on this. Because even if also the independents vote with us, we still need more votes. We still need Democrats to step up and vote to reopen the government. But they aren't. So that begs the question, why? If the government needs to be shut down longer for the Dems to break, fine. If this is going to be a standoff, I pray the Republicans hold strong and that we are able to reopen the government, not on their crazy, stupid terms. I think we're all sick of the Democrats doing this stuff and getting away with it and being able to waste money and give it to people who shouldn't even be here. So anyway, if the government needs to be shut down longer, then fine. Fine. But it's not the Republicans' fault. Because again, they vote 13 times. That boggles my brain. And the Democrats are going, well, we're all here at work. We're all here at work. Where are the Republicans? They're voting to actually open it. Meanwhile, you guys are like Lord Farquaad going,
some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I am willing to make.
Some of you may starve and die, but that's a sacrifice we're willing to make. Don't mind me. I'm just going to go out to the valet who's going to have my chauffeur pick my car up for me, and then they'll drive me home to my mansion with my gated security and, you know, my full fridge and my private chef who's already made me dinner and a drink. But, you know, you guys are just really good leverage. So, you know, fun times. And also, I want to touch on a little topic about apparently Trump is destroying the White House. He's tearing it down, you guys. Oh, the historic building. Oh. And during a shutdown, no less, he's not focused on us. He's focused on building his nice ballroom, and he's destroying a part of our beautiful building to do it. So yeah, people are freaking out because Trump has decided to tear down part of the east wing of the White House to build a ballroom. Now, last I knew, from what I remember, the east wing is not a historic part of the White House. If I remember correctly, it was built under FDR. So it's relatively recent in terms of our history. And it was being used for like office space and stuff. It was not a grand historic part of our building that was made, you know, during the early stages of America or anything. And so, yeah, Trump decided to tear it down and build a ballroom because also I learned this from this whole situation. Our government doesn't have an event space. Like when they wanted to do events, they would literally have to set up those like big white tents, like when you have to go to your like, you know, second cousin twice removed's wedding, and they got like the big tent set up with like the standing heater things. Yeah, that's what our government had to do when they had foreign dignitaries come visit and they had events happen. They had to set it all up and do it outside. Which is crazy to me. That's like actually embarrassing. That's embarrassing. America, one of the superpowers of the world, like strongest military on the planet, like first world country, didn't have a place to do big dinners. So Trump, privately funding it with, I believe, also other private donors, yeah, they're renovating a part of the White House that is not historical and unnecessary, and they're building an event space which will be built beautiful. I'm hoping beautifully and grand, and will be able to help other presidents for years to come because they will actually have an indoor event space. Because again, it's crazy that they didn't. And not to mention the fact that other presidents have added things to the White House. Obama added a basketball court. If you have to ask me whether or not a basketball court or a ballroom for holding events is more important, I'm not going with the basketball court. So I just find it so funny though, because people were like posting the drone pictures of the East Wing after it was torn down. And we're all like, oh, this is so terrible. Oh my gosh, can you believe what he's doing? It just makes me sick and it's just horrible. If that is the thing right now that's bothering you most out of everything, your life must be honestly pretty good. If the thing that you're most upset about is Trump doing some renovation on what is technically right now his house, it's his house, then I don't know how to help you, girl. Maybe talk about that with your therapist. So we are going to move on to the Christian stuff. And I mean, I don't have anything huge to talk about. So I'll do this especially smaller topic out of the way first. And these are both controversies that have happened online. So you may have totally missed it, but I just thought that they were interesting. They came up on my feed, so I'm going to tell you about it. So the first one happened on everyone's favorite platform, TikTok. And it was a controversy surrounding Hatch, which if you don't know what Hatch is, it is essentially like a sound machine. So it's a nightlight, a sound machine, and an alarm clock all in one. and you can get it for your bedroom, or they have versions for nurseries and whatnot. You can connect it to your phone and things, so you can change the color on it, and again, set your alarms, put on like white noise or music. It can read you stories, different things like that, right? And so obviously we're in November now, but we were just in the month of October, which is known as the spooky month. So, their ads are spooky. And so they had a couple ads that were controversial in the Christian side of TikTok. The first one was like a witch one. Because again, like if you go on I was looking at their ads, and they're all like centered around like there's the same bed and there's the same nightstand and there's just like different chicks there, and it's all about like getting good restful sleep at night, and you're sleeping well with your hatch hatch machine. And so this one was, this girl, and she's like doing this, and it's just, talking about like like about being spooky and whatever, and like, just using a bunch of puns, and so the blankets come up on their own. And then some entity somewhere lights candles surrounding her hatch machine, and she's like laying like this on her bed, like she's in a coffin, and is, her nails are black, like has more like darker makeup on. And people didn't like that because it's obviously denoting witchcraft, because I believe it talks about her being like a witch or whatever. And it's like, oh, so, like who's pulling up the blankets and lighting the candles? And a lot of people didn't like that. And the second ad was like a longer one. It was like a minute and a half, and it had a popular, fairly, if you know her, you know her, McKenna Grace, who is an actress. And it was this like satirical spoof of horror movies. So there was the girl, and it was like, this is what, like she's doom scrolling all the time until 2 a.m. and is getting awful sleep. And so she's getting like these crazy hallucinations and whatnot, and is seeing all of these things around her house, like it's haunted because she's just on her phone all the time. And, she's like, at one point it's like she's pulling a bloody charger cord out of her mouth because she's just staying up so late. But then you have the other guy who's like, he's sleeping so nicely with his hatch machine because he's getting good sleep and he's not staying up on his phone. And that was also controversial because people were like, it's demonic, it's spooky, like all this bad stuff. It's just promoting like evil, and it's unnerving, and da-da-da. Why do they have to advertise like that? And at first, when I first saw it, I was like, to me personally, this feels a little bit silly. But ultimately, if you're having discernment, if you're having conviction about something and you're praying about it and you feel like God is really putting that on your heart, absolutely. If you feel like God is saying, get rid of your hatch machine, follow your conviction, right? I'm not here to yuck your yum. So, or yum your yuck and say that you need, you know what I mean? And then there were also people though who were saying that they heard noises, like whispering coming from the white noise, because you can have it play white noise. They heard like whispering coming from the white noise when it was playing on their hatch sound machine, and they just thought they might be crazy, but they like really heard stuff coming from it. And another woman was talking about how, she had felt kind of the ick about it for a few months, because when she was on the app, they have like certain things that are like astrology based and were denoting like sorcery imagery. So like crystal balls and stuff. Which, I mean, makes sense. Like, I'm saying it makes sense for a secular app. Not that it's okay, but it makes sense. So it has, like, the woo-woo, crystal kind of astrology crap on there, right? And so she felt kind of weird about that for a bit. And then when all of this came out, she was like, yeah, that was kind of the push I needed, which is absolutely right. And the main point I want to say with this is some Christians saw it and said, this is silly. I feel no discomfort about this, about using a hatch machine. My God is stronger than whatever possible bad spirit is attached to it, or what, if they even believe that, like they don't even seem to believe that. And then there were other people who felt very strongly about it and destroyed their hatch machines and got rid of them and threw them out. And we're like, we're not doing hatch sound machines in our house anymore. This is absolutely evil. We're not doing it. Which totally, again, if you are feeling conviction about that, absolutely do what you feel you need to do to keep you and your family safe. My main point I want to make about this though is make sure you're not basing your conviction and your choices as a Christian when it comes to spirituality around stuff you see online. Because you don't know those people. They're random people. And they may truly believe what they saw. Maybe they did hear whispering. Or maybe they didn't. I don't know. That's the thing. You don't know either. And we should not be basing, like, you need to be using your own discernment. Don't let someone else discern for you and say to you, Hatch is evil, you need to get rid of it, right? You need to have your own discernment and pray about it and be like, okay, God, I'm hearing these things. And now it is kind of irking me. Is this something that is safe to keep in our house? Is this truly demonic? You know, like, be praying about it and come to your own conclusion for you and your family, right? But don't go off of random stuff you see online. Take everything on there with a big grain of salt, because those people online, you don't know how strong of Christians they are. You don't know their walk with God. You truly don't. So we shouldn't be basing our convictions and our choices off of things that people just say online. And I feel like it's very easy to fall into things and follow that bandwagon, you know, especially if you follow that person or you're friends with that person. So come to your conclusion, pray about it, and see what God's telling you, because people are going to be convicted to do different things, and that is okay. So moving on. This is one that I've been seeing this is about Allie Beth Stuckey. If you don't know who Allie Beth Stuckey is, she has a podcast called Relatable. She started a women's conference last year that she did again this year, and it plans to be an annual thing called Share the Arrows. She is a Christian podcaster. She's a wife, she's a mother, and she a couple times a week records podcast videos. She'll do interviews, just talking about different things in the Christian community and whatnot, and also sometimes in the health scene as well. Especially when it comes to women's health or health with your family's health and things like that. So there was a small controversy when she first did her Share the Arrows event, which is a big conference for women. It was made by women for women. There's women who are like Francesca Battistelli was there to do the worship, right? So it's worship, you know, all of this is being like by women for women. And so there were a lot of, like you saw in the crowds, there were, I mean, obviously tons of women there. There were women with their children. And it was just an event meant to truly encourage and edify women, but also having it be one of substance instead of just you go to the women's conference and it's like, yes, girl, women. And that's like about it. And it's just super fluffy. Hers are a lot more cutting to the core, truly talking about issues that matter when it comes to being a wife, being a mother, again, just being a Christian conservative woman in America. So, but people had a big problem with that because they were saying that she was preaching and women aren't called to preach. And if you don't know, obviously, if you, like anyone who's been in the Christian community for even a little bit knows that it's controversy between different denominations as to whether or not women can be pastors based off of what is said in, I always mix them up. I want to say 1 Timothy, I think, where it says, I do not permit women, you know, where Paul is talking and he says, I do not permit women to teach in the church and all of that stuff. So for a lot of people, they say women cannot be pastors in the church. They can teach and edify other women, obviously, but they should not be in pastoral leadership. There are some who disagree with that, and they think that women can be pastors and the scriptures out of context. Again, big thing. I'm not here to necessarily touch on that because, again, that's getting into a bicker battle that has been going on for a long time. So the main thing I want to touch on, though, is the fact that men online were telling her she's not allowed to speak at a women's conference to women about subjects relating to womanhood. Girl, what? What? Women aren't allowed to teach and edify other women? I mean, you're not saying that about Matt Walsh. You're not saying that about Michael Knowles. They can go and they can talk at conferences or whatever they want. But when Allie Beth talks and teaches other women, which, by the way, she wasn't the only speaker there, mind you. There were bunch of other women speakers talking there as well. So I just find it mind-boggling. The fact that apparently now it's controversial for a woman to go and speak at a women's conference. I don't know. The first verse that comes to my mind is iron sharpens iron. So you're fine with your wife going to the to the women's conference where women are speaking to her, women are speaking and they're giving fluff and filler And they're really just making you feel good for the weekend instead of like actually trying to strengthen and edify. But when Allie Beth has her own conference that she, as far as I know, she funds and does and runs and plans, that's for Christian women, that is actually meant to help women grow and shape them, suddenly that's a problem because she's known. She's not allowed to be a popular woman online and speak. And so that goes into the controversy that's happening now. Because recently she was asked to speak at a TPUSA event. So she spoke, which again, that's Turning Point USA. That's Charlie Kirk's organization that's now run by his wife, Erica. So Allie Beth was invited to speak at the event. So she spoke, and she spoke about a couple different things relating to men. And so one of the main things she talked about that seemed to strike a chord with people online is about porn. And porn being obviously a big issue and whatnot, and how men are so, and she also spoke about how men are so important, strong men are so needed. And she ended it off by saying like, Jesus is the answer, because obviously not everyone she's speaking to there is Christian. So it really seemed to be something that was meant to like encourage men and still call out a major issue right now that is still also in the conservative sphere, which is pornography, and ultimately leading it back to Jesus Christ. And so that really, the stuff I heard about her conference didn't seem to last very long, but this seemed to really steam some hams on Twitter. Sorry, X. I call it Twitter. It's still Twitter to me. It's been Twitter for too long for me to switch. So anywho, X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. People were mad on there. And it was a lot of Christian men who were saying that this is her preaching to men and just crapping on men, and that she's actually a feminist because she is telling men what to do. She's not at church. She is not standing in front of you saying that you need to accept her as a female pastor. She was invited to speak at an event. And it's not like she discouraged or just crapped on men the entire time. She talked about how great men are, how important men are, how necessary men are. And she also talked about one of the biggest vices with men. Don't get me wrong. Pornography is an issue with women too. I mean, have you seen the books women are reading right now? I'm not even really saying that as a joke. They are degenerate. Like, it's horrible. And even women watch regular pornography. I mean, I personally would be a hypocrite if I acted as though pornography online is not an issue for women. It is for everyone. But men are largely the ones who struggle with that. Let's be real here. Statistically speaking, they're the ones who are watching porn the most. And most porn is made for men. And I'm sorry, that's an issue that should be spoken about by everyone and anyone. And I wish that there were more men speaking out about it and how dangerous it is, even in the conservative party as a whole. But I've noticed that on Twitter too, is that also seems recently to be a sticking point, because you have people online, men as well, who say porn should be illegal. Porn is bad. Porn is abhorrent. It destroys your brain. Like any drug. Like, it's so bad for your mind, bad for your soul. It does. I mean, most porn is made for men, and it does objectify women. It objectifies men as well, but it also objectifies women. It changes the way you look at them. It changes the way you look at sex. And it affects you far after you've looked at it. And again, I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't speak on that, because that's something I struggled with in the past. I'm a Gen Z who grew up on the internet. Honestly, you're going to have a harder time finding someone who didn't grow up seeing that stuff around them. And yet we have men in the conservative sphere who are acting like it's this awful thing to say, hey, yeah, porn is bad actually. Hot take. And then you have, and I really truly don't think Allie is preaching there, because again, she is technically, she's not speaking to just Christians. She's not speaking at a Christian conference in front of a ton of men. Then I would say, okay, you got an argument there. She's speaking to a mixed audience about a topic again, this is not a church. She's not claiming to be a pastor. and I just find it so ridiculous that people are getting this upset about it. And I've heard men online be like, she shouldn't even have a podcast at all. She should be at home with her kids. Acting as though having 3 episodes a week in an hour-long podcast is taking away from her children. So what, as a Christian woman, I can't ever have a life outside of my kids? And you always know the men on Twitter who say that are single. Because I'm sorry, any well-adjusted person knows you're going to be a mom. And if you're a stay-at-home mom, you're spending the majority of your time with your children. But you're allowed to go leave your kids for a bit and have a life. And if you want to make content, make content. Make the content you want to see in the world. These men are getting all hot and bothered that a man isn't saying it. Go find a man who is, because I know there are men who are speaking on it as well. And also, if you feel like you aren't seeing enough of that, you be the man speaking on it that you want to see in the world. But I think it's good for anyone to be speaking about these issues, about how, yeah, strong men are important. They're vital. Men are great. We need to make sure that they're being strong men who are being led by Christ and avoiding things like pornography that are damaging to your mind and your soul and your family. So, again, that's what's been going on online. It's still and it's been ongoing too. This is a constant argument. I even saw Doug Wilson jump in on this, defending her. I mean, so anyway, yeah, apparently I have to quit this, and I have to quit my job, and I have to just stay at home all the time, barefoot and pregnant, because I am a woman. So I'm not allowed to teach ever. I'm not allowed to speak on anything publicly and have a public opinion online anymore. So, Brett Cooper, Candace Owens, Allie Beth, they should all quit too, because apparently women aren't allowed to have a platform at all if you're a Christian and speak on anything, which is such a normal, smart take. What an intelligent thing to say. Aren't people on the internet so smart? This is why we shouldn't take everything from the internet. We shouldn't take much from the internet at all without a heavy dose of salt. So, anyway, I thought that was interesting to talk about. So, I will leave you guys there. We will see next week whether or not the government is still closed. I will be interested to speak to you guys about how the Maine election went. Again, you better have voted. You voted, right? Because you've been complaining about it for a really long time, about this stuff, about voter ID. So you voted for it, right? I sure hope so. Otherwise, I'm coming to your house. And also, I hope we all should be praying for genuinely praying for the elections happening in places like New York. I fear that they will be learning a very harsh lesson soon. So, I will leave you there. I hope you have a wonderful week. I will see you next time. And at the end of all of this, I can say whatever I want, but what do I know?